recording, and we are going to hopefully wrap up book 6 with this episode. And so just to kind of catch us up, we've essentially been following along the conversation with respect to what the characteristics of a true philosopher versus a philodoxer are. And we now move into a part of the discussion that I think is crucial with respect to the Republic, because we are now embarking on the parade of analogies that Socrates is using to bring us into the allegory of the cave. And so the discussion from here forward is going to end with book 6, but it'll spill over into book 7. But the series of allegories that Socrates in this dialogue is taking the reader and his interlocutors on is to first establish what is called the analogy of the sun. And then that will move into the analogy of the divided line. And then those two are actually going to be the stepping stones for the larger overarching analogy, which is the analogy of the cave, which is probably the most famous analogy in the Republic. And so how we get to the discussion of the analogy of the sun really boils down to a cryptic phrase that Socrates was reminded of in this discussion. So back when they were first having a discussion about the Republic, the nature of justice, and how they would set about exploring the definition of justice at first a macro level, then at the individual level, there was a discussion as to what the point of all this was in terms of the ultimate aims of such a virtue as justice. And he hints at the idea that actually is a longer road of discussion. Basically, what he's talking about is good, this idea of good and what is good, goodness and the good. And it occurs in this discussion that he is reminded that when Socrates is talking about, by the way, the ideal philosopher, again, because he's contrasting the ideal from the not ideal, or the true philosopher from the false philosopher. The true philosopher will be somebody who is focused and has a natural proclivity and dedication and commitment to what is the ultimate form of knowledge, which is knowledge of the good. Now, he implies that, but it requires Adeimantus and Glaucon to ask him, what is this ultimate good? What is this ultimate form of knowledge that the philosopher would aim for? And so Socrates, in a way, a little bit hesitantly says, well, here we have to discuss essentially the nature of good, because this is the larger road. This is the longer road, which we don't have time to go into, but I will give you an idea of what I think the nature of the good that the true philosopher would be focused on is after. That's essentially how you could encapsulate where we are at book 6, right?
Yeah. It starts with, like you said, a lot of themes here. So it starts with the philosopher philodoxer, right? Philosopher is the lover of wisdom, and the philodoxer is a lover of their own opinion. And it's important that the leader of the Republic is a philosopher. Most commonly, we find that we are philodoxers. So I really like that. I think starting there is important. Just going back to the prior episode, we ended on whether it is possible for an ideal republic to be formed inside of the mind, or an ideal republic to be formed out of city-states. And that required two things. The most important one being that there is a philosopher, and that the second thing being that the philosopher is chosen to lead. And one of the first things that philosopher does when they're chosen to lead is to wipe the slate clean, change everything that the mind or the republic of the city-states as the population thinks it knows or understands. So whatever the mind believes to be the thing to do is, in fact, it's an opinion. It may be in line with the truth, maybe, but it most probably is not. And so it is extremely important to then understand what is the nature of truth, of good, of beauty. So then one can start aligning all thoughts or their entire population in that direction. So coming back to the allegories are ways for someone like me and you to understand why it is important. I won't even say important. Understand the nature of good, and also simultaneously understand how difficult it is to understand the nature of the good. And so before we rest our laurels saying, oh, I think I know what it is, we have to guard ourselves, because it takes someone with the nature of a philosopher, with the necessary life circumstances, and to develop the wisdom to then come as close as they can to the good. And for most of us, we either lack the nature, or we don't come upon the chance. The chance event has not happened. But we still have to operate with some understanding of what is good and what is evil, because that's how we would orient our lives. And until we lead an examined life, we don't come to this realization that what our understanding of what is good and what is evil is in fact not the true nature of what is good and what is evil. What we consider to be good is actually what the beast wants, and what we consider evil is what the beast doesn't want. The beast being convention
or the masses.
The masses, right? As opposed to the philosopher. The philosopher understands that there is in fact something called the good. It supersedes everything. It is unmovable. It is omniscient, omnipresent, forever there. It has never come to be. It has always been. That truth, once one aligns themselves to that is when every further action that comes after that would be the best course that one could take. So with that in mind, if we go back to where the Republic starts with someone asking the question to Socrates, what is justice? And Socrates says, in order to find justice, let us go ahead and first find wisdom, temperance, and courage. And we won't be able to do that in one individual, but we'll be able to do that in a city state. And then we'll be able to narrow it down to an individual.
Right.
So in that process, he created a group of people called the guardians, and said that these guardians are those who have philosophical natures, and they have the milieu in which they can develop into philosophers. And they are the ones who are going to lead the city and guard the city. And how do we then develop these guardians? Well, we educate them the right way. But one thing he eliminates, he doesn't go into back then, is that yes, you can educate them, but what is this education about? He talks about physical fitness, and he talks about music, and he talks about all those things, but he never says what's the aim. The aim, he lets it go for a while. And we would like to believe at that point, we believe that the aim was so that they develop virtue. They develop justice, temperance, courage, and wisdom. And we thought that would be the ideal guardian, would have all of those qualities. But that was our limited understanding. What he's saying is, you develop justice, temperance, courage, and wisdom when you're in line with the good. So all education, all training, and everything has to align with the good. Because one could be, and just don't worry about the word here, but the wise. One could be wise and not aligned with the good, and that would be your evil genius. When one is wise and aligned with the good, that is when one is the philosopher king.
Right.
That's perfect. So The line was back then was that justice, temperance, courage, and wisdom exists inside of the republic because the philosopher king says this is good and this is evil, and the masses are ready to follow it. That is wisdom. Knowing what is good and evil and choosing good over evil, that's wisdom. Courage is knowing what is evil, what is truly evil, and fearing only that, and not fearing something that may in fact be good, right? And then action that is just, action that is good, in spite of the fear, is courage, right?
Right.
Temperance was the masses choose the philosopher king to lead them. And justice was each arm of the republic knows what it's supposed to do and does what it's supposed to do, right?
Without interfering with others.
Correct.
Right.
So that was what we thought was the bedrock of what it is to form a republic in your mind. And now Socrates throws a curveball. He says, that's not enough. As a matter of fact, those are nothing compared to the most important. And the most important is to know what is the good. Only then can you develop these basic elements of justice, temperance, courage, and wisdom.
Yeah.
And look how far we are from it, right? Like you have to first understand what is the good, then build the virtues. We live in a world where we don't even know what the good is, and forget about virtues. Most people won't even tell you what virtues one should develop inside of them.
So yeah, so as I think about this, it's almost like Socrates again. So he's asked, well, what is the greatest subject that the philosopher is going to be concerned with?
Right.
And here clearly Socrates takes this opportunity to outline the idea, well, the ultimate aim of virtue, because the virtues themselves aren't necessarily aimed toward one another. They're actually aimed toward overarching idea, which is the idea of the good.
Right.
And what Socrates ends up doing through these analogies is inextricably weaving together, linking the fact that truth and good are essentially one and the same. So knowledge of the truth is knowledge of good. It is, and that is what is good. And so that's why he starts to lead into these analogies to walk his interlocutors into this concept. So he, and in his attempt to explain what is this greatest subject, and he talks about, the idea of good being the greatest thing that one could pursue knowledge of. He is asked point blank, what is good? And Socrates says, well, that's not something that you can answer. And it's something that I could only really describe. He does point out that there's been lots of people who've given their own opinions and beliefs about what the good is. But I think Socrates here is humble enough to say that I can only give you an analogous approximation of what the nature of good is. But I'm not going to talk about what good actually is. And he doesn't really say why, but I think it's because he realizes that not only is that a larger question that's beyond the scope of the idea of the republic, although it is part of the analogous universe that they're building. So I think it's telling that, this is a book about a republic, and here we're having to use a astronomical entity to describe the nature of good. Because in a way, what Socrates is doing, although he doesn't say this explicitly, is like, okay, we're talking about a republic. We're looking for good. We're looking for virtue. We're looking for justice in this republic. But now let me tell you about good. And notice that he pans way out. Like, what is the sun in comparison to a republic? Well, that is the relationship between good and virtue, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the separation. And the citizens of the republic can look up to the sun, but notice the link there, how the distance that's there, and yet how visible it is. But suffice to say, he goes into this discussion, essentially now talking about the analogy of the sun, because what he's trying to do is he's trying to explain to his interlocutors that the best way to understand the relationship between knowledge of the good and knowledge is to use the analogy of sight. Okay, so if you consider your eyes to be your mind, then the light that's provided by the sun is essentially the good. It allows you to see objects for what they are. Okay?
All right.
And so the objects that you perceive with your eyes are what he calls the intelligible things, the intelligible aspects of life. What I'm talking about is like the very distilled conceptual elements like beauty, the virtues themselves, any concept, the things of the intelligible realm require you to actually think about these things. And so what good does, essentially, the same way the light of the sun illuminates an object so that you can perceive it visually, is it makes it easier for you to see, makes it easier for you to know. So with vision being your intellect, your eyes being your mind, the light provided by the sun is exactly what allows you to see the objects better. And to be able to see the object is to be able to understand it, so that when there is a lack of that light, you're not actually navigating life with good visualizations of the objects and obstacles that are around you, right? And that would be a good analogy of somebody who is not aligned with truth very well. Because the less aligned you are with truth, then in a way, the more blind you are. Because you're not actually seeing the true nature of the objects. Now here we're talking about objects from what he calls the intelligible realm, the conceptual realm. And so for that reason, you're more likely to make mistakes, not just in judgment, but ethical mistakes as well. So that's how I think of the analogy of the sun.
Yeah, I found it not very useful, honestly, this analogy, because it's probably my limited understanding. It obviously is. I need to read it a couple more times. I've read this several times. I still need to read it some more to kind of get it, because I think it's a little too rational, and my logic is not as good. So I would never be a good Stoic. Like, I have terrible logic. So before I give you my poor understanding of what this is, first of all, thank you. You made it a lot clearer to me now. So I need to go back and read it in your light. I'm gonna listen to what you said, and then I'm gonna go back and read it again. But the point about Socrates being asked directly, just tell us what's the good? What is the good? And Socrates doesn't just say that I don't want to tell you. He actually says something very interesting. He says that I don't know what it is. I have a belief about what it is. And belief without knowledge are shameful and ugly things.
Yeah, he says that. Yeah.
And I thought that was the apex of humility.
Right.
For him to say that. And the reason why it's important is for folks like Glaucon and Diamatus and all these folks to understand that if Socrates cannot tell you the nature of the good because he believes he doesn't understand it, and he's not willing to share his beliefs on it, whatever action Glaucon and Diamatus take in their life, thinking that they're doing this because this is the good thing to do, they have to be very skeptical. You see?
Yeah.
But we fall prey to this all the time. Like, why do we choose to do this? Oh, because this is the right thing to do. We say it so easily. Right? Or, we've used this term so many times that this is the common good. And we are so deliberate in when we say it, like, why do you volunteer? Oh, because it's in line with the common good.
Right. The idea of good
we just
itself that most people harbor is very often an unexamined conventional definition of good.
Correct. It's their belief.
Right.
And I think there's a better way to say it. And you and me have changed our vocabulary a lot after reading some of these, right? There's some things we don't say.
Right.
And I have to find a way to say the same thing without being so flippant about using the word good.
Right. Well, what happens is as you read these philosophical texts, the words that are used, as you say, flippantly by most people, all of a sudden carry the weight of the world.
Oh, yeah.
So like I'm loath to say the word happy anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I'm loath to say the word good anymore.
That's right.
And it's because those words are soaked with meaning at this point.
Man. And difficult to know. And I think saying that that's what I believe is better. But it's not so much about how do you use this in a conversation. It's about what do you tell yourself? How the conversation that needs to happen inside of your mind is the more consequential one. What drives you, right? You have to understand that it is on shaky ground that your shaky foundation is built. So I think, and so if you start from there, right? He says, I cannot tell you what the good is. And I think there is something that should be said about that approach. If I was writing a book for posterity, which there's no way I'll be able to write one, but this is the way to do it. Because what everybody wants, what you and me are looking for, is a straight up definition. Right. Wouldn't it be great? We turn a page and says, this is the good, my friends. Right?
Man, just tell me.
Dude, just tell me. Right? And then I have it now, and that's it. My life is made. Turns out that this is not how this works.
Right.
And the best works are allegorical because you could keep reading it and keep coming closer and closer to what it is, but you would never really get to it because it cannot be revealed to you. It has to by someone's instruction. It gets revealed by your own efforts.
True.
And
but it could also be that Socrates himself, again, in his declination to answer the question, again, the reason it's humble is because he's admitting that I at best can give you my idea about what the relationship between good and truth is, which is why he makes free use of analogies throughout this, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're in an analogy within an analogy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying the reason why it's not been revealed to us by Plato. Remember, these are not Socrates' words; these are Plato's words through Socrates.
Right.
It's because any great, I've not read every great text, but the ones that I have read will never straight up tell you this is the answer, my friends. Sometimes in certain training, certain meditation training, they will not reveal to you even the second or the third order of thinking, because one of the most dangerous things is for a simple mind like mine to be the truth to be revealed to a simple mind like mine, and I say, oh, so what? Oh, this is the truth? Oh, so what? That's the most dangerous thing. You see what I mean? Because that is the devil. That is the definition of the pure evil. You take the understanding of what the good is and say, so what? Mm-hmm. And that's so easy for it to happen to someone like me, right? And so I think this is a great line saying, yeah, I can tell you what my belief is, but my belief are shameful and ugly things, and the best of them are blind. And from the best of them are blind, he goes into this whole, the sun allegory of what the good is. And he talks about the senses, and he says, of the senses, let's talk about the eyes, because that is the biggest, right, the most important one that we would have. And you have the eye, and you have an object of beauty. And you're perceiving the object of beauty with the eye. But what is one thing that you need in order for you to be able to perceive it? It's light, because if you turn all the lights off and it's dark, you cannot see anything. Right? So to say that your eye is the most important thing here, or the object of beauty is the most important thing here, the eye is good or the object of beauty is good, is a belief. But because you haven't really thought this through, if you examined it, you'd come to understand that neither of those two things are of any use if one doesn't have the sun. And now one can say the eye is within our grasp. We can study it. It's available to us. The object of beauty is available to us, but the sun is not. This is science now. Like we understand where the sun comes from. But even if you were to go into if you were to keep going to the science, would you come to a point where the answer would be, I don't know. But even for now, though, The sun is out of your reach, and that is the good. The sun is what gives, your eye is a poor representation of the sun. And he says that, and to your point, the one that you spoke about is about obscurity. If you say you don't need the sun, you say, you know what, I don't need to know the good. I don't care about the sun. I have a light bulb right here. Just turn the light bulb on. I don't need the sun anymore. Who cares about what the good is? I've created the good right here. This is the good, right? And turns out it's not the same. The sun does so much more than just make you see beautiful things. It is the creator of everything on the planet. That's number one, right? No matter how many light bulbs you develop. Second is that there's a difference between the light bulb and the sun. The basic difference is it does not have the same power in it. Like your sight is obscured at night when you're driving. Simple. Even though you have headlights and you have all of those things. Simple, right? Simple observation. Mm-hmm. So you cannot replicate it. You cannot understand it. But just to know that principle is something that is important, because then you stop fooling yourselves about where actual goodness lies. It doesn't lie in the eye. It doesn't lie in the beautiful thing. It lies in the sun. Right? And it's not achievable. You cannot recreate the sun. You cannot get it. You cannot touch it. You cannot hold it. You cannot even approach it. And that is, and you know, but the nature of good is even more unachievable than the sun.
Right.
So that was, I thought, in my mind, what the allegory of the sun was. And the lines that he used is very poetic. He says, there are many beautiful things, right? There are many good things that you can see and you can participate in. But there is only the good and the beautiful. It manifests in these things. But the things are not good. The things are not beautiful. Beauty exists inside of them. And what is the nature of beautiful? What is the nature of good? It says one needs to, if someone were to ask the masses what is good, they would say good is pleasure. Now, not pleasure in the sense that you're sitting on a couch and someone's tickling your foot with a feather. I don't know if that's your fetish or not, but that's not the pleasure that I'm talking about. But pleasure can be anything.
You've been down to work that.
That sounds very pleasurable to me. Anyway, so it's the pleasure being the beast convention. Anything that the beast talks about or not talks about, the beast wants is pleasure, right? So that conventional understanding of what good is pleasure. That's what the masses will tell you. That is good if you pursue that. Honor, reputation, all of those things fall under that same. If you ask somebody who has examined his life,
a scholar,
they'll
tell you
there is knowledge.
Knowledge, right?
They say knowledge is good, right? Well, if you were to push them on that, like, knowledge of what? Would the knowledge of the beast be considered good? Well, not in the same way as the knowledge of the good. Then if it's the knowledge of the good that is important, then it is not knowledge that is important. The good supersedes knowledge.
Right.
And same thing can be said about beauty, and same thing can be said about truth. Not all truths are important. The truth and good, the relationship is good more than truth, more than beauty, more than knowledge. But but even in that realm of things, knowledge, which is to know all the whys about something, WHY, right? Till you can answer each and every why about everything, you don't have complete knowledge. And that is impossible for humans. What we can operate under is we can probably go maybe 4 or 5 or 6 levels deep through science, through experience, practical wisdom. We can figure out, why does this happen? Well, because of this. And why does that happen? Well, because of that. But eventually it runs out. Knowledge runs out. To be able to choose the right action, despite not having knowledge, not be able to answer all the whys, that is where practical wisdom comes in. But knowing that it is faulty is key. Because even with all the practical wisdom in the world, one may still not be aligned with the good, because one carries a false belief. And I think there's also another key point here that they say that what about somebody who does not understand the good, but just by chance
Stumbles into it.
Right.
They happen to have a true opinion.
They have a true opinion.
Right.
They have a true belief. What about that person? And Socrates says that is kind of ridiculous. Like, that is not what you should be aiming for. Right? There's a line that he uses somewhere, and I don't know where it is. It's like a very beautiful line that he says. It's a beautiful line that he talks about. If you have just an understanding of you just by happenstance happen to follow in the right way, you can be led astray so easily. You'll never be confident of that fact. Now, it'll come to me later on. I'll talk about it. But just going back to the analogy, the sun analogy, just to understand that light is the good and not the sun, is a belief that is in line with a true belief that it is in fact the light of the sun that is the good. Mm-hmm. You're in line with that. But you would think that you got it. Aha, eureka, I cracked the code. Like, I know what the good is. The good is light.
Yeah, so what you're saying resonates with me. And again, I see it as an analogy within an analogy, because what he's trying to do is essentially explain the relationship between the good and truth. And so just like the light of the sun allows your eyes to see the objects around you, okay, it is the light of good that allows your eyes, i.e. your mind, mm-hmm. to perceive and understand the truth. And I think, simply put, I think that's the analogy of the sun.
This is the line. I'm sorry, I didn't say it.
No, go ahead.
To your point, what you said, right? Light and sight are good things. The sun is the good, mm-hmm. right? And so this is the line. This is, haven't you noticed that beliefs without knowledge are all shameful and ugly things, since the best of them are blind? This was when Socrates was asked, tell us what is the good.
Right.
He says, I cannot tell you because I have a belief of it. I don't know it. I don't know it. Mm-hmm. Do you think that those who have a true belief without understanding are any different from blind people who happen to travel the right road?
Right.
I mean, the way he says it, I think it's just it's a beautiful line. Sorry,
yeah, it's very telling. No, and so from here he moves into the next analogy, which I'm curious to think if you thought this one was more useful, but this one I found to be.
I'm a dumbass. Like, I didn't get any of this stuff.
The divided line.
So I'm waiting to you to enlighten me.
So again,
quote unquote enlighten.
Right.
Show me the good.
I'll make a fist of it. I'll fall on my face. But so again, Socrates has just explained the analogy of the sun again to try and explain the relationship between good and truth. So the same way the sun allows one to quote unquote see with their mind's eye what the truth is. So the same way the sun, and there's another point we should make. So the sun provides the light that allows your eyes to see the objects around you for you to understand them, right? So that is the relationship, the sun, i.e. the good, with your intellect, your mind, to see concepts, the objects around you. And therefore, it gives you the relationship between the good, i.e. the sun, and the truth, which is what your eyes are seeking, right? You're seeking knowledge. You're seeking the accumulation of wisdom over time. And so Socrates then moves on to say that, well, then what we really need to talk about is, in order to elaborate this further, is that there's a relationship between and I'm going to add in my own words here because, again, I was reinterpreting what I was reading in terms of the Republic of the Mind. So what he talks about with the divided line is he tries to come up with a way to think of the nature of how close the things that exist in your mind as opinions, objects, sensations, perceptions, beliefs, and those things. He tries to come up with a stratification system for how close those things are to the actual truth. And Socrates comes up with the analogy of the divided line to help explain that. And so in order to understand it, Socrates says, first draw in a way a horizontal line. And then what you're going to want to do is split that line unequally so that there is a small segment and then there's a larger segment. Okay. Now, let me reorient the listener again, because this line represents the closeness of your republic, the republic of your mind, to a state of truth. Okay. Or actually, I should say the state of your republic, how close it is to the truth, how closely you've settled your republic to the truth. Okay. How closely you've established your republic to the truth. And so the longer the line segment in this analogy, the closer you are to the actual truth. Okay, so those are the two baseline assumptions. So you have one all-encompassing line, and now let's split that line so that one segment is smaller than the larger segment. Socrates says the shorter line that you made by transecting the initial line is perception. Okay, and the longer line that you've made, that is introspection and contemplation. Okay, and so how close your mental activity is to the truth is going to fall on this line somewhere. Okay, so now he says, let's focus on the shorter line, the perception line. Okay, now I want you to divide that one the same way, with a shorter segment and a longer segment. Now, the shortest segment in that subdivision of perception is essentially perception, sensation, like your initial reaction to appearances and stimuli in the world around you. Okay, it's the lowest form of truth, not even close to truth. It's the furthest from the truth. It'll be the furthest left on that line. And so these would be like reactions and opinions about things that you perceive. Okay, a thorn in your side. You eat something sour. You see something that you think is attractive. You see something that you think is ugly. But then the longer line. Again, the length approximates closeness to truth. The longer line within the perception segment of that line would be how you think about those objects. So you have one, which is just sort of like your perception of the object, and then the longer segment is when you actually think about that object.
So can you give the same example,
so
like a thorn on your side? You said thorn on your side or something.
Yeah. So we can use the example of, so the example that I came up with is cheese.
Cheese?
So let's use cheese in this analogy. So again, we're in the divided line. We're in the shorter segment, which is the perception realm. Okay. And so looking at a picture of a slice of cheese, for example, and let's say you've never seen cheese. Okay, you see this gross hunk of white rotted milk with holes in it, and your initial reaction is that that's disgusting. Okay, so that is what Socrates would call part of the very base, the furthest from the truth, because you're reacting to an image, an appearance of something. Okay, so that would be the very lowest, the furthest from the truth. That's the shortest segment of the shortest segment in terms of the spectrum toward truth. Right. Okay. But now let's say you get a piece of cheese and you hold it and you smell it and you taste it. Now you're holding the actual object. So now your thoughts are of the actual object itself. Okay. So before now, we were formulating opinions and ideas about something without actually being able to hold it and see it. Okay, we were having a reaction to a reflection of something. But now we're actually tasting cheese for the first time, smelling it. Now, I don't know, it's the French bias in me, so I'm talking about cheese. But anyway, so you're smelling the cheese, you're tasting the cheese, and now you're formulating opinions about it. Okay, and so then that would be the next. That would be the next segment. So that one's longer. You're a little bit closer to the truth now because you're actually holding the object. And the thoughts you have about this object now are a little bit more well-founded. You're now getting a little bit closer to the truth. But do you actually know what the essence of cheese is? Can you answer the 5 whys about cheese? Not yet. No, you can taste it. You can smell it. You know what it's about. But you can't answer the 5 whys. So now let's say you decide to become a cheese expert. Okay. Or for whatever reason, you get very curious about it. You have a natural proclivity towards studying it. You're going to reach now a different realm. So let's go back to the very first split that Socrates made. So again, there was a line. You cut the line unevenly. The short segment is perception. We're leaving that. Now there's the long segment. And now this is the realm of contemplation and introspection, the realm of ideas. Okay. The very next step after that is when you have, now that you've experienced the cheese and tasted it, now you're thinking about the cheese. Okay. So now you're having thoughts about your experience of it, and you're having thoughts about what defines a cheese and what defines an excellent cheese. And not only that, you're having thoughts about wanting to know more. There's a motivational aspect to it. So this category is the hardest for me to explain when I was studying the divided line and thinking about how I would explain it to people, because here the word is metacognitive. You're thinking about thoughts. You're thinking about thoughts of cheese, and you're thinking about how it would be to know even more about the cheese, and even think about thoughts of like really understanding the 5 whys of cheese at this level. Okay, so this is the short segment of the introspective contemplative realm, the intelligible realm, which is what the exact word that Socrates uses. And then as you move through that, you reach the longest segment of the long section of the divided line, which is when you finally understand the essence of cheese and cheesiness. And that's when you can answer the 5 whys of the cheese, the bacteria, the process, the culture, everything, the taste, how you can manipulate all the aspects of it. And when you've reached that level, what you have achieved, according to the divided line analogy, is what Socrates says is understanding. Now you understand cheese.
I see.
And so this is the divided line analogy, and it's linked to the sun analogy, because what he uses in his analogy is not cheese, obviously, but he uses the same visual analogies, where he's talking about at one level, you're seeing images that you may or may not understand. The second level, you're having opinions, you're formulating opinions about what you're seeing. And then at the third level, when you cross over into the intelligible realm, you're having thoughts about your thoughts about that object, that reflection. And then the more you do that, you've reached the final level, which is when you have a true understanding of that concept. And that's the way to think of the divided line analogy.
So,
yes. Ask me.
This really helps. But like cheese,
you almost need like to draw it out.
Right, you draw it out.
Right.
I'm going to find holes in your cheese analogy. No pun intended.
Very good.
So
let's do it for puns. We'll do the divided line for puns. My initial reaction to that pun is like, good try. That was good. No, we'll go back to it. But this is a tough concept, but it's useful because it's the better you grasp this, I think the better the cave allegory makes
no
sense,
doubt.
right?
So I want to first thing I want to ask you is I want to make sure that I got it correctly, because I think that the way you described it is different from how I understood it. So if you say so, but my understanding of it is like my belief of my understanding. So the line that you spoke about, right, going from left to right, so divided into 2 unequal parts,
right?
The large part of it was the visible part. The smaller part was the intelligible part.
No, the intelligible part is the longer part.
So when we say visible and intelligible, I would find that intelligible, there'll be less things that are intelligible to me. There are more things that are visible to me.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because the way I looked at it was this, that there will be like things that I would say, you know what will happen? So I'll give you this, right? So here's the cheese analogy, which, man, I can't imagine we are talking about cheese in the light of the good, but I'm sure there's a way to do it. I like cheese, so good cheese is good. But say, like you started with, I don't know what cheese is. I have no idea what cheese is, right? And I'm going through my life happily, and then someone shows me an image of cheese and says, and gives me some descriptions of it. Says, man, I went to France and they were eating this like really stinky thing. It's just disgusting. Like it's just basically fermented milk. And Now, someone has told me that and walks away, right? And now my understanding of what the truth about cheese is that it is this disgusted, fermented, smelly thing that some crazy people chew on, right? That is my visibility. That is me seeing cheese. When I see cheese, I'm like, stinky, dirty, some people chew on it thing, right? Because I have not actually seen it. I've never held it, tasted it. I don't understand the roots or the nature of cheese. So that would be majority of my life. Most of the things that I've not experienced everything in life. I have come to hear about it from other people, and society. The beast has taught me a lot of things about life, and all of those perceptions for me, this is good and this is bad, is based on society telling me this is good or this is bad.
Right.
And so I'm not even seeing the thing for what it is. I am seeing what someone else's opinion about that thing is and forming an opinion based on that and saying that is the truth, right? It is an opinion out of a form of something. Even that person who told me about this has not examined it, has never eaten cheese, most likely, has never been to France. They are telling me what they heard from someone else, like a form of a form of a form. And I'm looking at that and saying, this is the truth. That's most of my life for me, right? So that I thought was like the visible part. And from that would be in a way like imagination. Like I imagine cheese to be like that. I imagine that a good life is a big house and a car and those things, an honor. These are all, I imagine them to be good things. I haven't gotten them yet. And once I get them, then I can form beliefs around them. So I go from this realm of imagination to the realm of belief. Like once I get the cheese now and I taste the cheese, I can form a belief in my mind. I would say, you know what, man, he was right. Cheese tastes terrible, right? This is terrible stuff, right? Or I could say, man, I love this big house. I love this big car. These are great things. This is my belief now. And if someone comes and asks me, what are the good things in life? Oh, the good things in life is reputation, honor, getting yourself a big car and a big house. And, all of those things are good things. So, but those are still within the visible aspect of my life. That is me not using my rational thinking on anything. That's how I thought of the visible part. That was the larger part of that line. The smaller part of the line is when I actually sit and stop and ask myself, why do I think that cheese is terrible? What am I missing here? Right? Then I go into the next stage of this, which would be, I'm thinking about it. That would be like thought.
Right.
And then I'm like, you know what? Actually, cheese is fairly nutritious and in the right setting. Maybe I wasn't eating it the right way. You smear it with something or the other, smear it on something, it tastes pretty good. Or there are different types of cheese. There are millions of different types of cheese. And I don't know if there are millions or not, and now you can find the right one. And it turns out cheese is awesome. I started enjoying cheese. Now I believe cheese is the good, right? Based on thinking. But in fact, that is not the good either. Because now suddenly you change your thought process. Suddenly you come to realize, it is not about a big car and a big house and the right spouse. Like those aren't the right things in life, right? So I'm going to give up everything and do something else altogether. And you think that I have thought about this and this is the right thing to do. But watch out, like that you could still be a blind man walking around a path and thinking that, they are going the right direction. You could still have a belief about what the good is, right? Till you actually understand the nature of food, nutrition, in which the cheese forms a part of the nutrition, and as opposed to as just like how the house or the mode of transport or the life partner forms the nature of the good. It is part of the good. So that then gets you to the understanding of it. You see what I mean? So right. I thought it went the other way, where the understanding, what you understand, turns out to be a very small fragment of this long line.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be like that. I think even if you have a very ordered republic, I think the ordered republic has the thought part and the understanding part. And the unordered republic has a lot of those visible elements
there's the reactionary perceptive side of the line.
Right. What do you think? I mean,
I totally get what you're saying, and it's a difficult concept to work through, and I've had to work through it many times. But suffice it to say, I think this is a good tool to understand what the nature of conceptual thinking is. Because, again, going back to the example of cheese, you wouldn't necessarily, you could apply this to cheesiness. What makes something a cheesiness? Or you could apply it to a tree. What is the essence of a tree? What is the essence of beauty? What is the essence of good? But all of it seems to follow this pattern where you start off in the realm where I think most people, and myself, I could say for sure included, have lived in kind of the first two segments, the perceptible realm, where I'm basically formulating opinions either informed by my own biases, convention, or I'm reacting without very much consideration or examination to elements or appearances of these concepts, and living my life and deciding that way. And in a way, what you're doing there is you're, again, living a life based off of appearances and not one under the full illumination of truth, which is what somebody who is a philosopher would do.
Right.
But when you move beyond that, when you actually start to think about how you think of these things,
right,
which is why I think that next level, the first part of crossing over into the intelligible realm,
right,
is metacognitive.
Right.
It's like now you start thinking about how you think.
Right.
So, and that's kind of what you were getting at, which is like, okay, well, thinking about how you think is going to involve idea exchange with the peoples who have opinions about this thing, your own study of this thing, that sort of thing. But then the end result, because what Socrates is doing here is he's setting a very high bar for the word understanding. Because now that's another one of those words for me that I won't use flippantly and say, yeah, I understand this. I'm like, well, hold on.
I think I understand.
Right, I think. And so that's kind of the way that I look at the divided line. So it's really just a way of categorizing. I want to use mental activity because here there's a lot of terminologic chaos too, because Socrates talks about beliefs, but that is not a very specific word. And here I really feel like there's probably something lost in translation because there's probably a Greek word here that makes way more sense. He talks about opinion, appearances.
So glad you brought that up. Right. And I think that is the problem here because English is such a practical transactional language. Right. There's a lot that is lost in translation here.
But suffice it to say, in terms of what you experience in life, yes, it's mostly going to be the perceptive realm. It's mostly going to be see, react, feel, react, taste, react, that sort of thing. And then there's that second level where you're actually thinking about that object, either in retrospect or in anticipation, and you're forming beliefs and opinions about those things. And that's the part where at that point, you're vulnerable to the contamination of your thinking from biases, convention, that sort of thing. But again, you move into the intelligible realm when you start to think about how you think about those things. And to the extent you find a motivation to know more, to know more about beauty, for example, or to know more about virtue or some concept, something conceptual, something that you really can't grasp with your hand and yet you can perceive. Because what Socrates is talking about is how if you try to understand truth with your own sensory system, you won't make it. Like you won't reach it because it takes work of the mind to fill in the rest. And that is that long line beyond you where you have to make up the distance by actually thinking about how you think about this object that you're really wanting to know. And then hopefully you strive to achieve what Socrates would call understanding, which is where you know something thoroughly, backwards and forwards. You can answer the five whys.
You can answer all the whys.
And the most noble of that type of mental activity would be that is concerned with good, right action, the good, right? Good.
And so the word that they use, what Plato uses for the unmovable, the unmanifest, the omniscient, the thing, the good, it's the form. To know the form of cheese.
The essence of cheese.
Yeah.
Cheesiness.
The cheesiness. The right cheesiness and the Cheez-Its. That's the cheesiness of it. But the form of cheese, that means he's talking about the cheese. Like we are saying the good. And And if you were to look at that line again, the large part of where we are is in that visible realm where we are just based on the inputs that we are getting from society, from the beast. We are forming this, we have this imagination, or we have this belief of what these things are. A lot of that is actually not the form of those things. We get a sense of what money is, of what accolades are. We get a sense of what titles are, but we don't get to understand the form of money, the form of accolades. What is the form? What is the honor? Not honorable things. You see what I mean? What is wealth? Not things that are expensive. So the form of those things, and like you said, the wealth, the honor, the accolade, or whatever, the life partner, all of those things are also subservient to the good, right? Because we as humans would like to believe that we are constantly doing things because we want to do good things, or we want good things, not do good things, we want good things. So the perfect partner, or the partner is, what we are saying is, this is a good partner. And that means the good is infused into this partner.
Right. It's a
right.
It's
so
a
one
unified concept. Right?
That's right. But there is a form of the good that makes this partner good. And so one has to understand that. And that is to understand the form of the good. So each thing that we participate in, there is a form of it. That's what he's trying to go to and trying to get at.
Right.
And if we are not careful, what happens is, or if you're not examining our life, we are working out of a series of hypotheses. We are not working from the first principle. We don't start our thinking, but you just imagine how that would work. We don't start our thinking from, okay, what is the good? Okay, now let's look at what comes after and subsequently, and now should I eat this cheese? Like your life would be just a series of contemplation, very little eating of cheese, right? If you start from the good every time. Now that is what the philosopher king should be doing. Inside of your mind, the pyramid of your mind, the apex principle is saying, is this good or evil? Oh, this is good. Okay, now next order of business. Let's start going down that chain. That's how everything you do gets aligned with the good. You see, that can happen. That can happen naturally over time. But if you practice it, it can eventually happen. But just imagine that process of everything you do, linking it back to the good, actually starting with the good, first principle. What is the good? Okay, it's next step. Okay, chew on cheese, right? We don't do that in life. We actually start with a hypothesis and we work from there. Oh, eating stinky cheese is considered to be, a mark of achievement or accolade, or, I'm somebody if I know this is stinky cheese and I can eat it. It's a refinement. And so I'm going to chew on this stinky cheese and make a big deal. I'm going to post it on Instagram or whatever. And I'm chewing on stinky cheese. Because you are starting there in that case from a hypothesis. You're not starting from a first principle. And whenever you start from a hypothesis, you have a much weaker argument. Right? Now, this is a silly pithy example like cheese, right? If you look at anything else in life, it's the same way.
For utilization, right?
Right. So, going to medical school, right? That hypothesis of that going to medical school is a good thing for you. It's not starting at first principle. Who starts with, what is the good? And let's now work all the way down to admission applying to medical school. One doesn't do that. One has a belief. First of all, you imagine what life would be like a doctor, right? That's the first step. That's where most people are, imagination, right? And then you kind of you get into this process of applying and stuff. Then you have a belief of what it would be like, right? And then most people stay in that belief range. They're acquiring things. It's like, this has to be good.
Yeah,
that's
they live in the first two, right?
Yeah.
They live in the first two sections.
My hypothesis is right. Like, this is good. This is being in medicine is the good thing to do. Now, look, I have this car, I have this house, I have all of these things, but you've never really thought about it. And then eventually when you come to understand the nature of what the good is, then you can actually say, okay, medicine aligns with the good because I understand what the good is. So in that order, then first is imagine, if you had to look at this process, if you divide them into four things, in the order from least to most important would be imagination, that is just based on what you're hearing from the beast or from convention. Belief would be second, based on limited experience that you have, without really giving it thought, without examining it. Then comes the process of examination, where if you are lucky, you find yourself there, right? You have to go through crisis and you have to have the right nature for it. And then you get into this thought phase where you're thinking about why do I believe this is the right thing to do? What is it about this? Where is the justice? Where's the temperance in it? Where's the courage in it? Where's the wisdom in it? Then you keep going down that path. And if you're lucky, you come as close as you can to understanding it. And that understanding is knowing, right? He still doesn't use knowing, he's still understanding.
Deep knowledge.
Understanding. Deep understanding. Right. And knowledge would be knowing all there is to know. Knowing that, one thing I can tell you, the thing that I know is that I will not know.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
That's the Socratic first principle. I know nothing.
But I can understand that. So I think you can get to that understanding part, right? And then imagine how you would order everything else after that.
Yeah.
So that's where he comes. That is the 4 conditions in the soul, is what he is getting at.
Right.
Imagination, belief, thought, and understanding. And then from there, he says, okay, now you guys are ready to talk about the cave allegory.
Right.
And I think you've laid it down perfectly. I think once we have this now, I think it makes it much easier to go into the cave allegory.
Yeah. So, but as I'm rereading this, because I think I misspoke at the beginning when I was talking about how he divided the lines. But I think you're right. You could also look at the lines as the distribution of the quality of mental activity as they pertain to actual truth, as a way to think of it. And so, yeah, the vast majority, the longer portions of those lines are going to be your reactionary, opinionated response to stimuli. Yeah. And then the smaller aspects the smaller proportion of that thought, of that activity, is going to be that one that results from metacognitive activity, when you're trying to understand the true essence of whether it's cheese or trees, the beautiful or the good. Right. Yeah. Right. So I guess we could leave it there, because we're going to start at this point spelunking.
That was
all
cheesy.
Right. So that was, that was corny. We didn't talk about corn. So we're going to go into book 7 next, and Socrates will take us into the cave.
This ends book 6.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
What a journey. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.